Never explain this. Alan Watts. The world often feels like a vast, intricate machine, doesn't it? And you, right in the heart of it, constantly striving to be the perfect engineer, meticulously adjusting gears, tightening bolts, all to keep your own small corner running smoothly. You arrange your schedule, plan your finances, curate your image, even attempt to orchestrate your emotions, believing that if you just manage every variable, every potential pitfall, you can finally achieve that elusive state of peace, of mastery. Yet you've felt it, haven't you? That peculiar, frustrating paradox. The more tightly you try to grasp the reins of your life, the more things seem to slip through your fingers, leaving you feeling less in control, more adrift, perhaps even more anxious than when you began. It's a sensation as common as breathing, this quiet desperation to impose order on chaos, to predict the unpredictable. You lie awake sometimes, the silence of the night amplifying every stray thought, every unresolved worry, replaying conversations, rehearsing future arguments, or constructing scenarios that may never even unfold. It's a mental tug-of-war, a relentless effort to pin down the elusive. In that pursuit of certainty, you inadvertently diminish the experience. There's a profound understanding waiting for you, a quiet wisdom that whispers some things are simply not meant to be explained, only felt, only lived. And in that surrender, you might just find the very control you've been chasing, not as a tight grip, but as a flowing current. Imagine you're standing on a busy street corner in the late afternoon. The city hums around you, taxis blare, distant sirens wail, the murmur of countless conversations washes over you. Your phone vibrates, a new email pops up from work, a message from a friend, a news alert about something unsettling across the globe. Each ping, each notification is a tiny demand on your attention, pulling you in a dozen directions at once. You feel that familiar tightening in your chest, that subtle clenching in your jaw. It's the silent alarm bell, signaling that your carefully constructed sense of order is under threat, that something is happening outside your immediate sphere of influence, something you cannot control. This isn't about grand failures, but the subtle, everyday erosion of your peace. A perfectly planned morning can unravel with a single misplaced key, or a difficult conversation replay endlessly in your mind. You find yourself consumed by the desire to manage outcomes, dictate how others perceive you, even control time itself, wishing you could speed up discomfort or slow down joy. This relentless striving to exert dominion often leaves you feeling like a tangled puppeteer rather than your own master. You might recognize this pattern in relationships, anticipating needs, smoothing disagreements, or steering situations towards a best outcome. Or in your career, where pressure to perform, innovate, and prove your worth becomes an inescapable burden. It's the belief that working harder, planning smarter, analyzing deeper will eliminate uncertainty, banish discomfort, and guarantee happiness. But what if this ingrained drive to control keeps you from truly experiencing life's richness, spontaneity, and inherent beauty? What if the struggle itself is the cage, and the key lies not in tightening your grip, but in understanding the nature of the hand that holds it? We're about to explore how this fundamental human impulse shapes your reality, and how a different way of relating to the uncontrollable might just set you free. The pervasive drive to control extends far beyond external circumstances. It often infiltrates the very core of your identity. Consider the subtle, almost unconscious ways you try to manage how you appear to others. You might find yourself meticulously crafting a persona, a carefully curated version of yourself you present to the world. Perhaps you spend an inordinate amount of time scrolling through a gallery of photos, selecting just the right one for a social media post, then agonizing over the caption, deleting and retyping, perhaps even adding an emoji to convey a specific light-hearted tone, hoping to elicit a particular reaction, a certain perception of your life. This isn't vanity alone. It's a deep-seated attempt to control your narrative, to ensure that you are seen in a favorable light, to avoid judgment or misunderstanding. The claim here is profound. This incessant editing of your authentic self, this constant performance, paradoxically diminishes the genuine connection you crave. When you become overly invested in engineering how others perceive you, you inadvertently distance yourself from your own truth. The micro takeaway, then, is this. Genuine liberation begins when you release the demanding internal editor, allowing your true self to simply be unvarnished and uncalculated. This doesn't mean abandoning social graces, but rather finding ease in your own skin, regardless of the perceived gaze of others. Furthermore, this impulse to control often turns inward, manifesting as a struggle against your own emotional landscape. You've likely experienced the frustration of attempting to silence an uncomfortable feeling, perhaps telling yourself, "I shouldn't be upset about this," or "I need to just get over it." There's a widespread notion that certain emotions are undesirable, that sadness or anger must be vanquished, or that joy can be manufactured through sheer force of will. This internal resistance, however, often amplifies the very feelings you wish to suppress. Instead of allowing emotions to flow through you like transient weather patterns, you inadvertently build dams, creating a reservoir of unacknowledged sensation that eventually overflows or stagnates. A crucial insight emerges here. Emotions are not commands to be obeyed or enemies to be conquered. They are rather messengers, offering vital information about your inner world. Their wisdom lies precisely in their impermanence, their capacity to shift and evolve. Consequently, attempting to rigidly control your internal experience often prolongs discomfort, transforming fleeting sensations into enduring burdens. The micro takeaway is clear. True emotional mastery isn't about suppression, but about mindful allowance, recognizing that all feelings, pleasant or challenging, have a natural lifespan if you simply let them breathe. Another crucial layer to this discussion surfaces when you consider your relationship with the future. You are often conditioned to believe that meticulous planning, exhaustive foresight, and a comprehensive understanding of all potential outcomes will safeguard you against disappointment or failure. This manifests as an almost obsessive need to preempt every possible scenario, to construct elaborate mental blueprints for events weeks, months, or even years away. You might find yourself spending hours analyzing contingencies for a vacation, a career move, or a significant personal decision, long before the variables are even clear. While prudence and preparation have their place, an excessive need for predictive control can ironically paralyze present action and diminish genuine enjoyment. The inherent fluidity of life means that clinging to rigid future plans often leads to frustration when reality inevitably deviates from your meticulously drawn maps. Building on this, consider the energy expended in trying to forecast every twist and turn of a path that hasn't even begun to unfold. This mental exertion often robs you of the capacity to engage fully with the present moment, to adapt spontaneously, or to appreciate the unexpected detours that often lead to unforeseen discoveries. The micro takeaway here is liberating. The future is not a fixed destination to be perfectly navigated, but an ever-unfolding journey. Releasing the need for absolute predictive control allows you to remain agile, responsive, and open to the organic wisdom of unfolding experience. It is in this openness, this willingness to engage with the present without the crushing weight of a predetermined future, that you find a more authentic, less strained way of moving through life. Beyond the personal realm, consider how this pervasive impulse to control subtly infiltrates your interactions with others, often without you even realizing it. You might find yourself in a casual conversation, perhaps at a dinner party or a family gathering, and rather than simply listening with an open mind, you're already formulating your next point, anticipating the other person's response, or subtly attempting to steer the dialogue towards a conclusion you deem more favorable or interesting. This isn't about malicious intent. It's a deeply ingrained habit, a quiet effort to orchestrate the flow of shared experience, to ensure it aligns with your mental script. When you're perpetually engaged in this internal choreography, you inevitably miss the nuances, the spontaneous insights, and the genuine connection that blossom only when you fully surrender to the unfolding moment. Shedding the impulse to micromanage every verbal exchange, allowing the conversation to meander organically, paradoxically deepens your presence and enriches the connection. Furthermore, a different facet emerges when you contemplate your relationship with grander, more impersonal systems. Think about the frustration that arises when you encounter a bureaucratic labyrinth, a political decision that feels utterly illogical, or a societal trend that seems to defy common sense. You might expend considerable emotional energy trying to mentally dissect it, to understand its flaws, or even to imagine how you would fix it if only you had the levers of power. This isn't just about problem solving. It's a profound, often exhausting attempt to impose your rational order upon forces that operate on a scale far beyond individual influence. Holding on to the belief that you should be able to control or even fully comprehend these vast, intricate networks can lead to immense disillusionment and a sense of powerlessness. It's akin to a single sailor attempting to command the tides. A valiant effort, perhaps, but ultimately futile and energy-draining. This drive to orchestrate extends even further, shaping your encounter with novelty and difference. Imagine stepping into a new cultural environment, or perhaps simply engaging with an idea that fundamentally challenges your established worldview. Your initial impulse might be to categorize, to compare it against your existing frameworks, to find its place within your preconceived notions of how things ought to be. This is a subtle form of control, an attempt to domesticate the unfamiliar, to reduce its wildness into something manageable and predictable. However, by rigidly adhering to your mental templates, you risk missing the profound lessons, the fresh perspectives, and the expansive growth that come from truly embracing the unknown without judgment. Resisting the urge to immediately label, explain, or pigeonhole every new experience allows you to remain a receptive vessel, capable of absorbing wisdom from unexpected sources. Moreover, this insistence on order can manifest as a deep-seated resistance to change. Even when change is clearly beneficial, you might cling to outdated routines, familiar dynamics, or even comfortable discomforts simply because they represent a known quantity, a realm you feel you can navigate, however imperfectly. The prospect of venturing into uncharted territory, of relinquishing the illusion of command over your immediate environment, can feel profoundly unsettling, almost like losing a part of yourself. Yet it is precisely in this willingness to step into the unknown, to allow life to unfold without a pre-written script, that you discover an inherent resilience and adaptability you never knew you possessed. Cultivating a welcoming posture toward all experiences, rather than attempting to filter or force them into pre-existing molds, opens the door to a richer, more dynamic engagement with existence itself. This requires a profound shift, moving from the constant effort of steering to a more graceful dance with the currents of life. Now consider a different dimension of this relentless pursuit. The very act of attempting to control often serves as a formidable barrier against vulnerability. You might find yourself meticulously constructing an emotional fortress, believing that if you can just manage every input and output, every potential interaction, you can shield yourself from perceived hurt or rejection. Perhaps you've held back a heartfelt compliment or hesitated to express a genuine concern, fearing that such openness might be misinterpreted, or worse, expose a tender part of yourself to indifference. This isn't merely about curating an image, as we've discussed before. It's a profound, often unconscious strategy to prevent emotional discomfort, to ensure you remain unbruised. Yet, this very act of self-preservation, this intricate dance of holding back, paradoxically creates a chasm between you and the authentic connection you inherently crave. The warmth of true intimacy, the richness of shared human experience, often only blossoms in the fertile ground of shared vulnerability, a space where the illusion of absolute control must be willingly relinquished. Furthering this line of thought, think about the peculiar phenomenon of choice overload in modern life. You are presented with an overwhelming array of options for nearly everything, from what to watch on an evening to which career path to pursue. The prevailing wisdom suggests that more choices equate to more control, leading to a perfectly tailored outcome. However, you might have experienced the opposite, standing in a grocery aisle, paralyzed by the sheer number of jam varieties, or spending hours researching a minor purchase, only to feel a nagging sense of doubt even after the decision is made. This isn't about making an informed selection. It's about the deep-seated belief that there exists a single, optimal choice, and that through sufficient analysis, you can locate it, and thus control the future satisfaction derived from it. When you become fixated on this ideal, the joy of simply choosing, of acting, often evaporates, replaced by a subtle anxiety that you might have missed the better option. Consequently, the relentless quest for the perfect, controllable decision can ironically lead to inaction, exhaustion, and a diminished sense of agency rather than empowerment. Moreover, the insidious weight of constant vigilance, this unending internal monitoring, extracts a profound toll on your overall mental and creative vitality. Imagine your mind as a vibrant garden. If you spend all your energy meticulously pruning every single leaf, checking for every potential weed, and trying to force every bloom into a predetermined shape, you leave little room for the spontaneous growth, the unexpected beauty, or the sheer joy of simply tending to its organic unfolding. This ceaseless orchestration, this mental micromanagement of your daily existence, consumes a vast reserve of cognitive energy that could otherwise be directed towards genuine creativity, deep contemplation, or spontaneous engagement. You might find yourself feeling mentally drained, even after a day of relatively light activity, a peculiar weariness that stems not from physical exertion, but from the relentless internal pressure to manage, predict, and direct. This constant mental strain effectively narrows your perception, making you less receptive to novel ideas, less open to serendipitous encounters, and ultimately less present in the richness of your own life. The true cost of this over-reliance on control, then, is a subtle erosion of your capacity for wonder, for play, and for the effortless flow of being. It's an unseen burden that keeps you perpetually on guard, rather than gracefully dancing with the rhythm of existence. What begins to coalesce from these varied observations, these countless subtle attempts to orchestrate your inner and outer worlds, is not a simple collection of isolated frustrations, but a profound, interwoven tapestry of experience. You've seen how the meticulous crafting of an external presentation can inadvertently obscure your truest self, how the valiant effort to suppress an uncomfortable emotion often entrenches it more deeply, and how the exhaustive mapping of future possibilities can paradoxically diminish the vibrancy of the present moment. Each instance, whether a fleeting thought or a sustained endeavor, contributes to a larger pattern, a silent narrative that shapes your days and influences your nights. Drawing these subtle currents of experience together, you might begin to perceive a common thread running through the very fabric of your being. It's akin to watching a magnificent river, powerful and free-flowing, yet observing how it might expend immense energy trying to dictate the precise shape of its banks, rather than simply embracing the contours of the land. This constant exertion, this internal wrestling with what simply is, consumes a vast reservoir of vital energy. It's not merely about individual moments of tension, but about the cumulative weight of a life lived in perpetual defense, a continuous effort to impose a preconceived order upon an inherently fluid and dynamic existence. This posture, while born of a desire for security and peace, often leads to a persistent, subtle weariness, a sense of being perpetually on guard, rather than gracefully navigating the inherent unpredictability of life. Imagine the sheer lightness that comes from shedding this invisible armor of control. The mental friction begins to subside. Conversations become richer because you are truly listening, not just waiting for your turn to speak or attempting to steer the narrative. Challenges, rather than being immediate threats to your carefully constructed order, transform into opportunities for growth, for innovation, for discovering reserves of resilience you never knew you possessed. You begin to experience life not as a series of problems to be solved, but as an unfolding journey to be engaged with, an intricate tapestry woven with threads of both joy and sorrow, success and setback. This release allows for a deeper, more authentic connection with yourself, with others, and with the vast, vibrant world around you. It fosters a quiet confidence that transcends circumstance, rooted in your capacity to adapt, to learn, and to simply be. This understanding is not a destination to be reached, but a continuous practice, a gentle recalibration of your relationship with reality. It's a moment-to-moment choice to loosen your grip, to breathe into uncertainty, to allow life to express itself through you, rather than attempting to force it into your preconceived molds. The true practice begins now. In the quiet moments of reflection, in the midst of a challenging interaction, in the simple act of noticing your breath. It's found in the courage to be vulnerable, the wisdom to let go of what cannot be changed, and the grace to embrace the beautiful, messy, unscripted unfolding of your existence. This is where genuine freedom resides, not in the absence of challenges, but in the unwavering presence you bring to them, unburdened by the illusion of absolute command. It's a profound permission to live more fully, to love more deeply, and to experience the world with an open-hearted wonder that was always waiting for you, just beyond the reach of your efforts to control. If this brought